Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. In this video, we're going to be doing a 148 tactic boot camp. If you've never been into any of my boot camps, what they are is I go page by page through the rule book explaining the rules to a game. And in this game, we're doing the 148 tactic. And this game is set in a scale a little bit different than some other games. It's set in 148 scale, which is about a 35 millimeter. And the figures are a lot larger than your, let's say, bolt action figures. This here is a standard bolt action figure, and this is a 148 tactic figure. You notice how it's much larger. Now, the base size is exactly the same. It uses a 1-inch base. What that means is, temporarily, if you have other figures mounted on 1-inch bases, you can use them with these rules without changing any of the measurements, and then gradually get yourself into 148 scale miniatures. When you buy a starter set, you get 4 148 scale miniatures and their associated cards. You get a number of tokens, you get a number of terrain pieces, you get 4 terrain pieces, all the tokens you'll need for your side of the table, your cards for your troops, which are double-sided. You have a healthy and a wounded side to every one of your cards, and you have the figures. And you get 2 dice, which 2 dice is not going to be enough unless you roll them multiple times. So you can always go out and get other D6s that you're going to use. All right, now in today's game, I've got my 4 starter set 101st paratroopers, and I have my 4 starter set 26 Volksgrenadiers. This is all taking place somewhere in the Ardennes, near Bastogne. You'll need a ruler. You'll need your tokens, you'll need your dice, you'll need the terrain, and the minimum, you'll need at least a 2x2 area where you're going to play. The cards have their name of the individual soldier, because they're all unique, and a point cost in parentheses. You want to try to stay for your first few games between 30 and 40 points. The starter sets come with 27 points. Now you can go online and you can download the rules. The starter sets come with a 1-page rule that you can unfold and you'll know the entire game. But there's also a rule book you can get directly from Boeda, or you can get the PDF download from RPG Now. Now this game focuses on very small scale tactics. You're talking 4 to 6 men per side. You're looking at like not even a full squad, like more like a half a squad. The game can be played with more and more figures. It'll just take a little bit longer time to play, but that could be enjoyable. Now in this boot camp, we're going to be going over core rules. In future expansions, namely Achtung Panzer, they're going to expand upon weapon systems. Like they'll have anti-tank rockets like bazookas, they'll have rifle grenades, actually vehicles that you can use on the table. But in the core rules, it was designed for a small infantry tactics around maybe a single objective or something like that. So that's what we're going to stick with today. And in the future, there will be future boot camps with when I get Achtung Panzer and various other expansions. All right, so now let's talk about the basics. The basics in the game is you're going to alternate turns. One player goes, second player goes, one player goes, second player goes. Okay, great. When it's your turn, you'll be given 5 AT tokens. Right? That is the core of the game. You'll be getting 5 action tokens. Now, these action tokens are spent on your characters to have them do things. Those they can perform actions or move or what have you. Now, when you look on their characters, it shows what they can do. Though they have certain abilities and ability scores. Okay, so you spend action tokens on a character. You can spend an action token on this character, then you can spend an action token on this character, and then go back and spend another action token over there if you want. It doesn't matter. You're just doing one action at a time, and you can decide where you're putting the action. Every character is different, and that's primarily his personal stats are over here, and his weapon stats are over there. A lot of times, you'll have a character like, let's say, Eric Koenig, and you might equip him with a rifle instead, so he would have the rifle stats here, and then his personal stats would be there. Those are other cards or tokens that can go on them in future expansions. If you do not spend all of your tokens at the end of the turn, you can decide to save them for the following turn or later turns, but you do have to spend at least one action token every turn. So you spend your one action token, you can save the other 4 for next turn. So next turn, when you get your 5, you'll actually have 9 actions that you can perform. Okay, now when you look on the cards, you'll have like an arrow. That is movement. You can move a number of inches equal to that number for every action token you spend. So I can spend an action token on Eric Koenig. Eric Koenig could move 4 inches. You have a ton of action tokens because remember, you don't need just 5, right? Because your opponent's going to need 5, you're going to need 5. Not at the same time, but you might save some actions. Like I said before, you might save 4, so you'll need 9 tokens on your side. And what if that guy does the same? He'll need 9, and then you can even save 8 more the following turn. You'll have 13 the turn after that, if you wanted to be like super cautious and pause and hesitate, which I suppose would be a tactic. Let's talk about the abilities on the card real quick, and then we'll go into the first steps of the game. Again, I said Eric Koenig has a 4 there by his movement stats. So if he spends an action token on movement, he can move 4 inches. The next ability is a circle. Looks like a crosshair or a target. It looks like a target. That is called Opportunity Fire. So he can do Opportunity Fire. And if you have an arrow with dashes, like it's a cutout arrow, that means he can move and fire. And when you place an AT token on this gentleman, he can move 3 inches. He can move 4 with a movement. He can move 3 with a move and fire. That's great because he's got a submachine gun, so he'll want to move and fire. He can move 3 inches and still fire. The next looks like a honeycomb cutout. It looks a lot like that on your card. That is Suppression Fire. So he can do Opportunity Fire. He can also do Suppression Fire. And that 2 in the bottom is his command ability, the star. That's his command ability because he's the NCO. Now, very important, over here on the right, there's a 5. He cannot be given more than 5 action tokens in any turn, which is crazy. You're not going to put all your action tokens on one guy, but you could. Or, like in the previous example, if you'd saved 9 action tokens, you could still only put 5 on him. You would have to put the 4 on somebody else, or split it up, or save them. Setting up the battlefield, preparing the battlefield. Because right now all we got is a 2x2. You place all your cards in front of you, the ones that each player is going to use, and then you set up the table. At least as many terrain elements as there are miniatures. So you'll need to have at least, you can have more, but they say that you should have 1 per figure on the table. And that's what I pulled out. I pulled out 8. The game recommends that you put them at least 5 units. Okay, they call them action units when really all they need to call them is inches. You got to put them in at least 5 inches in from any side. So there's going to be a clear area of 5 inches all the way around the table. Each player rolls a die, but before deployment, he rolls one, and it says the highest scoring player, this guy, will set up the whole battlefield. But then this player, whoever lost the roll, will get to choose which of the 4 sides he enters from. So it's one of those, one guy gets to decide how the battlefield looks, and the other player looks at it, sees how it was set up, and chooses the side he wants to come in on. So that forces the higher roll, who's setting up the table, to kind of make it balanced, because he doesn't want the other guy to get the advantage side and then he get the disadvantage side. So he's going to set it up in a way that he thinks no matter what side the opponent chooses, he'll still have cover. Okay, so let's just say one of the players wins and he goes to set up his table. He says, okay, 5 inches in, 5 inches in. Okay, you don't have to set it up perfectly aligned like that. You can set it up like that if you want. That's what I'm going to do. And this is a unique type of terrain. It's called a donut terrain or a circle terrain. We're going to set these up. Okay, now that gives me a guideline of where all the other terrain pieces should go or could go. That's the terrain. Yeah, super simple. That's how you set it up. Now the other guy says, oh, okay, I like the way that everything's set up. This is how I'm going to deploy. Now, when you're using a 2x2, characters are going to be deployed touching the table edge that they decide on, where on a bigger table you can set up to 5 inches in. Now, in the case of uneven forces, whoever has the highest point value, because I might have 30 and you might have 29, if that's the case, the highest point value will deploy first. Otherwise, if you have even forces, whoever lost the setup roll, because the winner set up the terrain, the loser decides which side he's going to set up first on, and he'll choose to deploy his first figure. And I'm just going to make this super basic, setting him up there. Then what he'll do is he'll set up over here, then he'll set up over here, and it'll just go back and forth like that until both sides have their figures set up. And you can put them anywhere you want. You don't have to put them side by side. You can kind of clump them up if you want. However you want to do it. So there, the figures are now set up. Okay, so now the battle begins. At this point, it's a new start. They both roll initiative. And he has initiative. So the Americans will be the ones to start with 5 action tokens. So they're given their 5 action tokens. Now the Americans are going to do their turn. When they're done, it'll go to the Germans. Okay, so let's talk about the different actions. One of them is move, right? You spend an action token on a character to have him move. I'm going to pick Frank Williams because he has a really fast movement. He's going to move. I put an action token on his character. He moves 5 inches. Okay, so that is this guy right here. Look. Okay, so his 5 inches allows him to get to the donut. So he enters the donut. Okay, so what that does is it puts him in the center here in cover. He's got all around cover now. Now you can move over obstacles. Let's say I was here and I could spend an action to move my 5 inches around, or I could spend 2 actions and just move 5 inches over the obstacle directly. So an obstacle costs you 1 extra action token to cross, as long as it's not more than 2 inches tall. Yes, you can cross a wall 2 inches tall with an extra action token. You can never spend more than 3 action tokens on a character to move. So if I wanted to, I could spend 3 action tokens on him and have him move 15 inches. Because he can have 4 action tokens spent on him. But like this character here, if I spent, that's John Kelly, if I spent 3 action tokens on him, he would only move 9 inches because he only has a move of 3. This guy, he must be carrying a lot of extra weight. But this guy can move 5. He's a sprinter. These guys move 4. 5, 4, and 3 as well. It's just done a little bit differently. If you were close to a building and you wanted to move up a level, you could do that with an action token, but you cannot use move and fire when climbing. And figure facing is irrelevant. It doesn't matter which way he's facing. You have a 360 arc. You can move directly through friendlies. You just can't stop if it only overlaps. You'd have to back up to whatever point would not let the bases overlap. And move and fire does count as those 3 maximum move actions. Okay, let's say he was here and he had a 5-inch move. Now remember, I'm going to cross this obstacle, so I'm going to spend 2 action tokens. But because it would cause me to stop on top of the obstacle, you can't do it. You have to be able to cross the obstacle. If you don't have enough inches to get across the obstacle, in that case, you would stop at the obstacle. And at that point, I wouldn't spend the 2 action tokens. All right, that should have covered all of movement. Movement's pretty simple. If you move up and touch a donut cover, you just pick your guy up and put him inside the cover. And you can't be on top of any of these linear covers. You have to be on one side or the other. Okay, let's move on to some more rules. Take cover. Okay, there is a take cover token, or in cover, right? It says in cover or take cover. It's the same thing. Costs 1 action. So if you have any saved action tokens from your last turn and you get shot at, you can drop an action token on a guy so that he can take cover. You don't have to declare the take cover until after your opponent has declared if he's going to shoot and what his numbers are to hit you and all that. Let's say I have this guy and I've already put 4 action tokens on him on my turn, and I saved this action token. If somebody shoots him, he cannot have this 5th action to take cover because he's already used the 4 maximum that he has. So he basically doesn't get the reaction because he's already used up all of his actions. Characters cannot take cover while climbing ladders or ruins, or while carrying something or manning a weapon or a vehicle. You cannot maintain opportunity fire or suppression fire while you're in cover. And what cover does is it gives you a +1 or -1 to be hit. So basically, if a shooting you in the open is a 4 or better, taking cover will let that be a 5. Okay, so great. Cover, like a cover terrain piece, normally gives you a +1 as well. So let's say Joe Blow is in, that should be Frank Williams, he's in cover, right? So instead of the 4, someone would need a 5 to hit him, and then if he takes cover, it'll make it a 6. Now let's say he shoots at him and he takes cover, or he's already taking cover, and it's a 6 to hit him, great. If this guy shoots at him, he's already in cover, taking cover, so the numbers would be the same. So once you take cover, that take cover lasts for whoever shoots at you. Now there is a limiting factor of this. Let's say this guy is here and this guy is there. Normally when he shoots at him, he would need a 4. The cover would make it 5, and then if he took cover, make it a 6, right? But because he is less than 5 inches, he cannot take cover, or if he already has cover, it's no effect. So just the linear cover would give him a 5 to be hit. But because he is within 2 inches of this cover, it's also ineffective. So he's back to a normal 4 or better shot to hit. It's really cool. When you get close, you eliminate their taking cover, and you also eliminate their in cover. 5 inches for him taking cover, and 2 inches within the cover piece eliminates the cover. And the camouflage ability is also ignored within 5 inches. Some of these characters have this ability called aim. That's got a crosshair on it. Okay, it looks like a crosshair, and it gives you a number next to that crosshair. That it tells you if he aims, he gets to add that many dice to when he attacks. It does require an action. When you move in fire, you cannot combine the aim ability. Okay, the attack action. It's an unwritten action on here. You just attack. Everybody has the ability to attack someone. When shooting, or when doing close combat, or throwing hand grenades, blah, 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 you attack with your weapons. You spend an action token. Okay, the first thing you do is determine which of your figures is going to take the shot. You place an action token next to your character's card. This represents them actually attempting to take the shot, but not squeezing the trigger. At this point, the target character, if he's beyond 5 inches, he can take opportunity to take cover. They also have to immediately place the action token on their card. This simulates him reacting to perceived danger. The shooting player can now choose to aim if he wants, increasing his chance to score a hit. Place another action token. If an aim action is taken, the target has the opportunity to take cover again. Let's say he's in cover, he's a million miles away, right? And a guy shoots at him, and he can say, well, I don't want to spend an action token to take cover because I might need it on somebody else. And then the guy says, well, I'm going to aim too. Then he can say, oh crap, I better take cover. And then he can take cover at that point. It is possible that at the end of the shooting, character is left with no chance to hit, like maybe it's a 7. Then you roll as many dice as simulated by your either long or short range for the weapon. So the way the short range and the long range works for every weapon is if it's less than 10 inches, it's considered short range. Everything else is long range. So I can shoot from this corner to this corner, it just counts as long range. But if you're under 10, use the short range. So if Eric Koenig was shooting with his submachine gun, he gets 3 shots if you're less than 10 inches. But he only gets 1 shot if he is at long range. Okay, attack actions include firing a weapon, shooting, using move and fire, opportunity fire, or suppression fire actions, throwing a hand grenade, or hand-to-hand in close combat. Characters can always attack with weapons they are equipped with as detailed on their profile, and additional weapons can be used if purchased separately. Characters equipped with more than one weapon can choose which one they're going to use. If you use more than one in the same turn, switching weapons in the middle of a turn is considered an action and requires an actions token. And remember, acting impulsively and making mistakes is an important and fun part of the game, just as in real life. You'll have to learn and live with your consequences. So basically, any spent action tokens can never be taken back once they're placed on a card. The maximum number of times you're allowed to shoot with any character is listed on the first stat of the weapon. It says shots. Shots 2 means he can take the shooting action twice. Shots 2, shots 2, shots 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. This guy has a shots of 1 because he's using a bolt action. Each shot takes 1 action token, and it results in as many dice as indicated on the stat card. So like this guy, his long range shot, he gets to roll 1 dice to hit, and if he's within 10 inches, that's considered short range. He gets the short range number of dice, which would be 3. So depending on how far away you are, determines how many dice you roll. And if you aim, that also adds a number of dice. It doesn't change your to-hit roll. It changes how many chances you get to successfully hit. Remember that cover provided you 1 cover. So if he was out in the open, it's a 4. If it crosses cover, it goes up by 1. If he's within 2 inches of this cover, it does not give him the benefit. So far, so good. But hypothetically, let's say the cover was like that, and he was here, or better yet, there. So he's more than 2 inches from that, so he would get the benefit of both covers, so he would get a +2. So if he's 4, 5, 6, if he decides to take cover, he can't hit him. If he is within 2 inches of this cover, it negates this cover. 4, 5 is all he needs. If he takes cover, it would be a 6. Because even though the table is flat, there's probably little logs and rocks and little divots and depressions and who knows what. Lying prone gives him that extra 1. So 4, 5 doesn't count, takes cover, makes it 6. That's more than 10 inches. So he would be at long range. He would only get 1 die to hit. Okay, so far, you following me? So, let's say, now we're going to talk about results. Let's say he is here, he is here, he is within 10 inches because you measure from base to base, always base to base. They're within 10, so he gets 3 dice. So let's say he doesn't take cover or doesn't have any action points to be allowed to take cover, so he needs a 4 to hit. Let's say we got a 4, a 5, and a 6, right? Those are all hits. It's irrelevant how many hits you get. He becomes wounded. So in that case, Frank Williams gets flipped over to the backside, and then his numbers will change. This is the wounded side. But there is an exception to this. If you roll 2 6s when shooting him, it's an instant kill. So he is dead. If I roll a 5, 4, 5, and a 6, and he becomes wounded, and then he decides to take a second shot, then he would, and if he hits again, then he would be killed. Every character has 2 wounds. You got your healthy, your wounded, and then dead. And remember, if you aim, okay, so let's say Dietrich Meyer, he only gets 1 shot. At long range, he gets 1 die, but if he aims, it adds 2 dice. So yeah, if you take the aim action, it adds dice to hit, and if you move and fire, you can never additionally aim. You have to be stationary, basically, to aim and shoot. All right, we talked about setting up the terrain, who deploys first. We also decided which side of the table you choose, how to pick your army, right? Because you have points on the characters, and you should play around 30 or to 40 points in your first few games. But you can play larger battles, and there will be new additions coming out that are going to expand the rules with like machine guns and bazookas and Panzerfausts and tanks and rocket grenades and stuff like that. We talked about the action tokens, how many you get every turn, how you can save them. We talked about spending them on movement and shooting and aiming. And we talked about cover a little bit and how cover is eliminated, how many dice you get to roll, and what the target numbers are to hit, and the fact that you only have one hit before you're dead. And that is the end of the first video. I want to take an opportunity to split this video up into multiple videos. So the second video should be talking about hand-to-hand combat, grenades, opportunity fire, suppression fire, the command ability, and being wounded and eliminated. We might even talk about different types of terrain. Alright, so I'll see you in the next video.